Now for our story, One Girl in a Million. Yesterday, we found Sally getting ready to attend a dinner party, which Lila DeWitt, one-time fiancée of Sally's husband, Don Whitehall, is giving for the Whitehall family. Among the guests will be Diana, Don's sister, and her husband, Philip Parker, about whom Sally has heard so much, but so far has never met. Mrs. Whitehall, in pretending to be kind, has hired a French maid, Mitzy, to wait on Sally. In reality, Mitzy is a private detective hired by Mrs. Whitehall to spy upon Sally. For Mrs. Whitehall hopes that sooner or later she can uncover some actions of Sally which will enable her to break up her marriage with Donald. But as we left Sally, she was about to leave for Lila's dinner in company with Don and his father and mother. Today, our scene is at the home of Lila DeWitt, where the party is in progress. There are lots of people here in handsome evening clothes. Sally, left alone, seems to be stranded over in one corner. Then Lila comes by and says,
"Why, Sally, darling, what are you doing off here in this corner all by yourself?"
Oh, hello, Lila. I was looking for Don.
And why on earth do you want Don?
Well, I wanted to ask him something.
Well, I don't think you'll find him hiding in this corner, unless he's lost himself in the foliage of that palm. Besides, I don't want you to find Don. I think when married couples go to parties, they should get away from each other. I make it a rule at all my parties to separate husbands and wives.
But I did want to see
Oh,
Don.
nonsense. He's probably out with some of the men having a grand time. And you know, men hate to be disturbed when they get together that way. Come with me, Sally, dear. I want you to meet some of these charming people.
Well, I'd rather not, Lila. You see, I promised Don I'd stay here until...
You've forgotten all about that, my dear. Now, have you met Dr. Richmond? Oh, he's fascinating. Man is marvelous at science, and you'll adore talking to him, you know.
I don't know much about things like that. He'd probably think I was awfully boring.
Oh, my dear, no man would ever find you boring.
You know, I didn't know there'd be so many people here. I thought there'd be just Don and his mother and father and Diana and her husband.
My dear, I thought you'd enjoy meeting a few of Don's friends. I know you haven't had a chance to get around much as yet. Now, where do you suppose Dr. Richmond is? I can't seem to locate him. Last I saw him, he was engaged in a bitter argument over the Einstein theory with Harry Anderson. Oh, you love him, too. He's so erudite.
Yeah?
I'm sure both men would appeal to you.
Yes, I'm sure they would.
Where do you suppose they went to? Oh, there's Enid Pankhurst over there. Of course you want to meet her. You've heard of her.
Oh, no, I haven't.
I'm surprised. She's so famous.
For what? Is she an aviator or something? I don't pay much attention to those things, or sports either. I never read the sports page. I couldn't tell you anything about who won the Olympics.
Enid is a poet, my dear. Her work is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Oh, you'll adore her. Come, I want you to meet her.
All right.
Oh, Miss Pankhurst.
Yes, Mr. Witt?
I want you to meet a dear friend of mine, Mrs. Donald Whitehall, Miss Pankhurst.
How do you do, Mrs. Whitehall?
I'm very glad to meet you, Miss Pankhurst.
Sally just loves poetry. Why, only the other day I dropped in at her home and she was buried in a volume of Fanny Epstein. She just loves Fanny Epstein. She told me so.
Miss Epstein and I are great friends. I knew her very well in Paris. What were you reading of hers, Mrs. Whitehall?
Trees bend low.
Oh, there's Diana. She must have just arrived. I wonder where her husband is. You'll excuse me. I must speak to Diana.
Certainly.
You'll have time for a good chat before dinner, ma.
Tell me, how do you like Trees Bend Low?
Oh, I think it's good.
Yes, it is. I don't think it's up to Epstein's other works, though, do you? But I never will forget those lines. Trees bend low. Bend low, bend low. Low bend in the grass. Bend low. Just what do you think Epstein is getting out of that?
Well, I guess it means that the trees bend low. That's all. I didn't bother much about what it meant. I just thought it was supposed to be poetry.
So?
It's a nice party, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. Charming people. I've been reading a great deal of Proust lately, Proust and Cabell. Tell me, don't you feel Proust is overrated?
Oh, yes, I do.
Good. I'm glad to find someone who agrees with me. Now, tell me why you think Proust is overrated. I'm getting some very interesting opinions, and I want to get yours.
Well,
Come now. Do you think
Good
that...
evening, Sally. Oh, I beg your pardon. I hope I'm not interrupting.
Oh, no. Hello, Diana. Say, I'm glad to see you.
You're looking rather beautiful tonight, Mrs. Whitehall.
And you're looking charming, Diana. I wish I could look half as nice as you.
Well, I don't believe we've met.
Excuse me. I forget all the rules. I'm awfully sorry. Mrs. Parker, I want to present Miss Pankhurst.
Pankhurst is the name?
Pankhurst, Miss Pankhurst. I'm dreadfully sorry.
How do you do, Miss Pankhurst? I'm so happy to meet you at last. I've heard so much about you.
Thank you, Mrs. Parker.
It's a charming party, isn't it?
Lovely. Mr. Witt gives such lovely parties. We were just discussing Proust, and I was asking Mrs. Whitehall
Oh,
if she
yeah,
thinks...
do forgive me, but I just saw a very dear friend of mine arrive, and I'm so anxious to have Sally meet her. Do you mind very much if I take Sally with me?
Not at all.
We can carry on this discussion later, perhaps. But I'll be dying to have Sally meet this old friend of mine.
It's quite all right.
Thank you so much.
I'm awful glad. I'm very glad I met you, Miss Pankhurst.
Pankhurst is the name.
Pankhurst. Miss Pankhurst. I'm awful glad. I'm glad I met you.
Come along, Sally.
Thanks. You saved me from something. I didn't know what to say to her.
Nobody does. She's just an old bore who likes to show off. How did you happen to get stranded with her?
Lila introduced us and then left me there.
She would.
And now, where is this old friend of yours I was to meet?
There's no old friend. I just wanted to get you away, that's all.
Oh, you're a pal, Diana.
No, just a little girl trying to get along. Well, I'm glad I arrived here late. How's the party? Pretty deadly?
Well, to be quite truthful, I haven't enjoyed it very much. Don disappeared shortly after we arrived, and I've been left high and dry. Then I got stuck with Pankhurst.
I see. Well, all I've got to say is, when do we eat?
Is that the way you feel? Me too.
Oh, there you are, Diana, darling. I've been looking for you.
Oh, hello, Aunt Claire.
How are you, dear?
Hi.
I've just been talking to your mother and father. And, dear, I don't think your father looks a bit well. My, he'll go under a day just like that. It's too bad. But you're looking well, simply divine.
Oh, Aunt Claire, I want you to meet Donald's wife, Sally.
Oh, so this is Sally. I've heard so much about her. I'm so happy to meet you, my dear.
How do you do?
It's time you met Donald's aunt. You know, Donald always says I'm his favorite aunt. Aunt Claire, he always says is my favorite aunt. Of course, I think he's trying to flatter me or trying to get money out of me, but I love it anyway.
Oh, if Donald says that, I'm sure he means it.
Well, let's hope so. Oh, Diana, dear.
Yes?
Have you heard the gossip about the Bachmans? My dear, don't say I said it, but Emily Bachman is leaving him. They say she's on her way to Reno. And now let me tell you the real inside on what's happened
I'm
there.
afraid I'm not interested, Aunt Claire. You know I have no interest in the Bachmans or what they do.
Well, of course, if you're not interested. Oh, but such a story. I was pledged to secrecy, but I guess I can tell you.
Please don't bother.
Well, very well. Lovely party, I think. Where's Philip?
Philip, well, he couldn't come.
Oh, he's not going to be here?
No. He's been working very hard of late, and he had to stay downtown tonight with a client. You know, it's just one of those things. Of course, Lila's disappointed, and so am I. So, of course, he may drop in later.
Well, I don't think so, my dear.
Probably not, but he said he might.
Well, my dear, I hate to be the one to tell you, but...
How are all your family, Aunt Claire? How's Lola?
Oh, very well, darling, thank you. My dear, I saw Philip downtown last week, and I don't think it was a client he was entertaining that day, unless, of course, his client is a
A
blonde.
great many of Philip's clients are women, Aunt Claire.
Yes, possibly, but the stories I've heard, if they're true, and I don't think this one was a client. My dear, how can you be so blind? I hate to be the one to tell you, but it's time you know what people are saying.
I haven't any interest in what people are saying, Aunt Claire. In fact, I never pay any attention. Ah, it's awfully warm in here. I feel a slight headache coming on. If you don't mind, I think I'd like some air.
Very well, my dear.
It's so nice to have seen you.
Yes, Diana.
I'm very glad to have met you, Aunt Claire. I should call you Aunt Claire, I suppose.
My child, I insist upon it. You're a dear child, Sally, and I hope you and Donald will be very happy. But I can see it's going to be hard the way things are going.
They're getting along very nicely, Aunt Claire.
Oh, well, that's fortunate, isn't it?
Perhaps we'll see you later.
Yes, later.
Let's go out on the porch, shall we?
Oh, isn't it beautiful out here? Oh, it's a wonderful night.
Well, you've met Aunt Claire. She's public gossip number one.
I gathered that.
Advise you to keep away from her, Sally, as far as possible. She'll make trouble every time if there's any trouble to be made. Aunt Claire always steps in and makes a good job of it.
I don't imagine I'll try to get very chummy with Aunt Claire. Diana, you face things so squarely. You size up people so honestly. You know people, and you don't try to make out that they're different from what they really are.
Why should I?
Well, everyone else does. I think it's because you're honest that I like you. Well, I feel like a miserable fool when I was stranded there a while ago with Miss Pankhurst, for instance. I felt so dumb, and then you came along and made me feel that I'd be better off not even knowing Miss Pankhurst.
Don't let any of those people fool you, Sally. Most of them are fakes. Fakes in one way or another.
I should think they'd respect you.
That's funny, because I don't believe they do. If anything, they pity me.
But why should they pity you?
Oh, you heard Aunt Claire going on about Philip. I stopped her as soon as I could.
Yes.
So far as Philip is concerned, they think I'm a nitwit or a fool. But they don't know a woman may have real reasons for wanting to pretend to the world her marriage is a success.
You're not happy, Diana. I sensed that from the first. Is it on account of Philip?
Oh, Philip's not entirely to blame. Perhaps he thinks he's been cheated in a way. You see, Mother arranged our marriage.
I see.
I was very young then, and though you may find it hard to believe, in those days I did just as Mother always said. And Mother always said she knew what was best for me.
I'm sorry things haven't worked out better for you.
Here. Anyone would think my life was a bitter tragedy. It's not at all. I'm rather lonely at times, but by now I should be used to spending my evenings alone, going to parties either alone or with the family. I am used to it, in fact.
You do have a lot of things that would make most women happy.
Yes, I have a beautiful home, servants, a lot of clothes, and I take trips to Europe, Florida, California. I have lots of things that would make most women happy. Everything except one thing.
May I ask what that is?
Come, it's too nice an evening to spoil it with my troubles. Uh-oh, something must be happening in there.
Oh, yes, somebody important must be just arriving.
Perhaps the guest of honor. Maybe now we'll actually get around to eating. You know it's after 9, and I'm practically starved.
Me too. Come on, let's go in and find out what all the excitement's about.
All right, let's.
You know, as long as you're with me, Diana, I'm not one bit afraid of these people. If anything, I feel as though I had an edge on them.
If you only knew it, my dear, you had.
Diana, dear, Philip has just arrived, and I'm that excited. I was so disappointed when you said he couldn't make it, and then he appears just like that. I do believe it's magic.
Oh, I thought I said Philip said he might come. Hardly expected him as soon as this. Where's Aunt Claire? I must tell her Philip is here.
Yes, she'll be much disappointed.
Yes, indeed. Aunt Claire's always looking for trouble and disappointed if it doesn't happen to someone.
Oh, Diana, has Sally met your handsome husband?
No, come to think of it, she hasn't.
Oh, but I've heard so much about him.
Come, my dear, you must meet him.
Yes, Sally, you must meet Philip. It's time you got acquainted with your own family.